Today, there are hundreds of American journalists living in and reporting on China. But it wasn't long ago that most news about the country came through Hong Kong. Back then, Hong Kong was a British colony and a so-called listening post, a place where reporters sifted through Chinese propaganda, talked to refugees and defectors, and exchanged tidbits of information with diplomats and spies. The University of Southern California's U.S.-China Institute has produced a documentary on the 3 decades when China was said to exist behind the bamboo curtain. The film is called China Watching, and it was produced by Mike Chinoy, a former CNN correspondent in Asia. He's prepared a short excerpt for us. Take a look.
This was as close as reporters could get to the mainland, a hill overlooking the Chinese border. Here, they could peer across at rice paddies and villages, so near, but completely out of reach.
We resorted to extraordinary means to get pictures. We would drive once a week out to the border in the new territories. We would set up a large antenna. We would put a television camera, a film camera, and shoot the output of a black and white television set which was hooked to the automobile battery, and we would pick up, with the help of that big antenna, we'd pick up Guangdong television, and every once in a while you got some pretty good stuff.
Had a little group known to my wife as a Little Boys Club. We met every month. There were people from various consulates, various news organizations, and various intelligence organizations. And, you kicked things around and you compared notes and you put it together.
Many of the reporters came to rely on Father Laszlo Ladany, a Jesuit priest who'd lived in China in the 1940s and then moved to Hong Kong. Father Ladany's great skill was his ability to read between the lines of Chinese propaganda.
The American correspondents in Hong Kong, for most part, didn't speak Chinese. They relied on Father Laszlo Ladany, the Hungarian priest. He was the expert.
Father Ladany, who was a great China watcher, a very good friend, used to say, you have to understand, if they say a bumper harvest, that means they almost met their target. If they said it was a satisfactory harvest, it means they only got halfway to their target.
Another key source was the continuing flow of refugees from China. Ted Koppel was ABC's Hong Kong correspondent in the late 60s.
The most accurate information that they were getting out of China tended to come from the waves of refugees who came out. And of course that began in the late 40s and went on into the 50s and even into the 60s.
You just saw a short excerpt from the documentary China Watching, reported by Mike Chinoy, who joins us via Skype today. Mike, welcome to LinkAsia.
Thanks for having me.
Now, this is the 4th episode in a series called Assignment China. What is the series about, and how are the experiences of the journalists you cover in other episodes different from this one?
Assignment China is a multi-part documentary film series we're doing at the U.S.-China Institute here at USC that's looking at the history of American journalists in China from the 1940s to the present day. The premise behind the project is that the way in which the American press have covered China has really shaped the way the American public and the American political class have understood or misunderstood China. Moreover, given the clout of the American media of organizations like the big TV networks, the wire services, the New York Times, and so on, American media coverage has had a disproportionate impact on in shaping perceptions of China all around the world.
Now, how successful were the journalists in Hong Kong in piecing together news about China?
The latest episode, of this series, which is called China Watching, looks at the 2+ decades, the 1950s and 60s and early 70s, when American journalists, like most of the Western press, were frozen out of China. The Chinese Communist government largely banned Western reporters from coming. You had journalists and diplomats and spooks swapping stories, swapping speculation, trying to piece together from the outside what was going on in China. It would be a bit like sitting in Bermuda for 20 years trying to make sense of what was going on in the United States without actually being able to get inside the country.
And in light of those constraints, were they actually able to fashion an accurate picture of what's going on behind that curtain?
What's really interesting when you go back and talk to the people who worked as China watchers and you read or look at what they did is how much of it they got right in spite of the obstacles. Clearly, there were plenty of things that were wrong, endless speculation that Chairman Mao had died when he didn't appear for weeks or months at a time. But the broad outlines of the developments in China, the reconstruction of the 50s, the catastrophic famine of the Great Leap Forward, the tumult and chaos of the Cultural Revolution, the broad outlines the journalists got more right than wrong. And I think it's a credit to those tools of China watching that were developed when they weren't able to go and look for themselves.
Now, looking at some of the big news coming out of China today, like the Bo Xilai scandal and China's leadership transition, it often seems like there are as many versions of these stories as there are foreign correspondents. How much better informed are we today compared to the days when Hong Kong was the main listening post?
I think overall, we're much, much better informed. China is a much more open country. I can give you one example. In 1971, when Chairman Mao's designated heir, Lin Biao, attempted a coup and then fled, the initial information that there was something amiss was only deduced from the fact that his name didn't appear in some routine New China News Agency press release, and the details didn't emerge until much later. When the Bo Xilai scandal erupted, it first started with Bo's police chief seeking refuge at the U.S. consulate in Chengdu, and Chinese microbloggers had details about something going on at the consulate as it was happening, and it all came out very quickly. So China overall is a much more open country, with the internet dramatically changing the way information is made available, and therefore dramatically impacting the way international journalists do their jobs. That being said, at the very highest levels, we still don't know that much. And so even now, with the Chinese Communist Party about to have its big party Congress, we still really don't know the details of who's doing what to whom at the very, very top level, or indeed what the very top leaders are thinking about in terms of moving the country forward.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Chinoy is a senior fellow in the U.S.-China Institute at the University of Southern California and a former senior Asia correspondent for CNN. You can catch a screening of China Watching at the University of Southern California on Friday, October 12th at 4 p.m. For more information about the series, visit china.usc.edu.
U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.